Hello, this is Bronson's By Any Means Necessary Fantasy Football Talk for Preseason 2023. It's been a while since I did some content or some sports-related content. I've been doing some travel content for those of you who are following the YouTube page. I don't think, my it's pretty stale, pretty stagnant, not really increasing, not really getting any engagement. But I took baseball season off. I didn't really feel. I mean, I didn't intend to take baseball season off. I mean, I'm playing fantasy baseball. I just didn't film any content because I just, I didn't intend to take it off. I intended to do content. It just didn't happen. And then it was like 2 months into the season, and I was like, well, it's too late to start now. So I'm just gonna take the year off. And it's taking me a little bit longer to get excited about football season this year. I don't know what it is. I'm getting older, but every year it's taking me a little bit longer to get into the groove. But I have now done 10 drafts, and 10 drafts is my standard for myself before I start giving out draft advice. Through my 10 drafts. I also have another one tonight, one of my actual, annual leagues with friends, not just the free ones that I join to pass time or fill content or fill my fix, or to, for content purposes, to fulfill the needs that I set for myself to do content on fantasy football. I'm still not really super excited for the football season. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that just my life just lacks joy. I try to manufacture joy. I try to buy joy, but that's all temporary. I take myself on a trip. I buy myself a trip. That's temporary joy. There's no joy really in my day-to-day life. But I'll fill you in on my life later. I don't really want to make time for that right now, but I do want to say that things are finally looking up for me getting to Arizona. That I've been trying to do since June of last year. The original plan was I was going to enroll in school, Arizona State Online, this fall, because Uber pays for that, 100% pays for it. And UPS also would pitch in. And then the idea was that I would tell UPS that I needed to transfer to Arizona because I was going to Arizona State's school. They don't have to know it was online. But I was telling them I was going to transfer there, use the education transfer to get down there. But the rules have changed in the last couple of months. So my union rep told me to hold off because as of the new contract, which just finally, why is that thing, that was never there before. I don't know if you guys see that. The square around my head. I don't remember that ever being there before, but it's there while I'm recording and it's kind of annoying me now. Now that I've noticed it, I can't not unsee it. He told me to hold off because as of the new contract, which was supposed to be official on Tuesday, is you no longer need an education transfer. You can transfer for any reason at all. So transferring is a lot easier now. So my idea is to use that to go to Arizona, or Arizona would be my first choice, but I'm gonna add some other options like Eugene, Oregon. I want to go back to Eugene. I know that the Eugene Springfield facility is very busy, so I know they need help. I enjoyed Eugene. It'll get me closer to my friends, my family. Go back there. Albuquerque, New Mexico is another place I'm considering. But Arizona, Tucson would be the preference. So that's the contract I think was officially finalized as of yesterday. So I think next week I'm going to finally formally request a transfer and get the heck out of here because I'm unhappy here in Portland. And it has nothing to do with the politics of the city, nothing to do with the city itself. I have absolutely no success dating here. I don't have any friends here, and like I was noticing yesterday that all the friends I've made in my adult life, which has been very few, they've all been married or they've all been in a serious relationship, like engaged to be married. So I have no single friends whatsoever. Like so, this city is great. It's a great city. It's a great place to live. Everything is close. The beach is close. Mountains are close. A lot of hiking. A lot of great food. A lot of cool stuff in Portland. And it's beautiful. It does rain a lot. It's just not the place for me mentally. So I gotta get out of here. I'm miserable. But without further ado, let's get to the football stuff. I'm gonna try to do defense, special teams, tight ends, and quarterbacks in this video here. I'm gonna adjust this a little bit because I kind of wanted to show off the jerseys, but I think I want to focus more on me, so maybe this stupid thing will at least stay center. All right, so let's start with defense, special teams. This is the preseason top 10 according to ESPN rankings. 1, we got the 49ers. 2, we got the Steelers. 3, the Bills. 4, the Saints. 5, the Dolphins. So that's your top 5. 6, you got the Dallas Cowboys. 7, you got the Browns. 8 is the Jets. 9, the Patriots. 10, the Packers. So all 4 AFC East defenses are in the ESPN preseason top 10, which I find fascinating because all 4 of those teams, well, probably 3, are going to be really good or should be really good overall and should be in the playoffs. So, so my spikes and yikes for the defenses. Yikes is the Dolphins. I really don't see the Dolphins. The Dolphins didn't even finish. I forgot to look it up before I started this, which was error in judgment. But forgive me, this is the first episode of the year. Just some kink story out. And like I said, I didn't do any baseball content, so it's been a few months since I did this. I'm way out of practice. But I'm not feeling the Dolphins as even a top 10 fantasy defense, let alone top 5. They're completely off my draft board. And my other yike is the Packers. They're at 10, which is the Packers. This happens every year. They get overrated in the preseason, and by the end of the year, they're in the mid-tier to below average, like the 15 to 25 range every single year. Never a top 10 defense. I don't think that's going to change this year. Sorry, I need some caffeine. Before I started filming, I was really feeling like I was about to doze off. So the caffeine, I need my fix. I'm an addict. Spike to defense. I got the Cowboys. Cowboys are at 6. I think they'll be a top 5 defense again for the 3rd straight year. And then the Jets at 8. They finished higher than 8 last year. And so now they got Ahmad Gardner, who is already probably the best corner in football. He's coming off his rookie. He's entering his 2nd year, so he's going to be more familiar with the defense. You got some other guys who are another year along in Robert Saleh's defense, and then having a competent quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, who we'll talk about later, is going to help the defense out immensely because there's not going to be so much pressure on them to shut opponents down. They're going to get more rest because Zach Wilson isn't out there throwing picks or 3 and outs. So it's going to benefit them. I think the Jets defense is going to be even better than it was last year. So having them at 8 seems a little low for me. A couple of defenses outside the top 10 who I think could finish in the top 10. We got the Commanders. I know they were a top 10 defense last year. They're currently sitting at 13. They could be a draft day steal. The Ravens at 15. Now the Ravens last season were like I forget where they finished. I know it wasn't top 5, but it was definitely in the top 10. And they've got a lot of, they just signed Jadeveon Clowney. They got David Ojabo back from his year-long injury. They added Trenton Simpson, perhaps the best inside linebacker in the draft. Kyle Hamilton is in his 2nd year of the defense. They got to get a lot of young guys who should take a step forward. I'm really high on the Ravens defense this year, especially week 1. They got C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans. I'm loving that matchup. The Ravens are a defense that I have been targeting heavily in every single draft. I think I've got them in the 11 drafts I've done. I think I've gotten them in at least 8. I'm a guy who I typically draft 2 defenses because I don't like to do the whole streaming every week thing, and defenses are volatile. So I like to take my chance, increase my odds of having a good defense by drafting two. So the Ravens usually have been the second defense I've been grabbing, but I'm starting them in week one. They're my favorite matchup. Spoiler alert, the Ravens are my favorite week one matchup defensively. So when I get to my spikes and yikes for week one, defenses, you already know it's going to be the Ravens. And then the Eagles at 16. It's not like the Eagles have completely forgotten how to play defense, even though the way they played in the Super Bowls would suggest so. They were a top 3 fantasy defense last year. Yes, they lost their coordinator, but they still have all those players. Still a supremely talented team. They added Jalen Carter, who, however you feel about his character, the physical traits are undeniable. They added Nolan Smith. They added some weapons to that defense to make them even better. I see no reason the Eagles shouldn't be hovering around top 5 again. So having them at 16, that's a huge draft day steal right there. Moving on to the tight ends. So I need to do that editing thing where, it has like all the other people on YouTube, they have little hash marks to tell you where things are. I don't do a whole lot of editing. I just film and hope for the best. And if I really botch it, I just restart it. But at this point, I'm 11 and a half minutes in. I'm not restarting anything. So you guys are just going to have to suffer through this. Tight ends, preseason, top 10. Number 1, Travis Kelce. Anyone surprised? Travis Kelce's probably the greatest fantasy tight end of all time. Or let's say most dominant. 2, Mark Andrews. 3, T.J. Hawkinson. 4, Darren Waller, who's currently now with the New York Giants, in case you forgot or missed that. 5, we got George Kittle. 6, Kyle Pitts. The Kyle Pitts hype never ends. 7, we got Dallas Goedert. 8, we got Pat Freiermuth. 9, we got Evan Engram, who's coming off a huge year with the Jaguars and also just got a nice fat new contract from them. 10, we got David Njoku. All right, so my yikes, the tight end position is the one I have the most problems with. So my yikes, starting with George Kittle, I think the fact that Christian McCaffrey is there now, so the 49ers finally, in the Kyle Shanahan era, or the all Shanahan era, his father Mike was notorious for this, never having a real reliable running back because they just figured anyone off the street can get 1,000 yards. But now they have one, Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey's arrival really had the biggest impact on Deebo Samuel, but I think over the course of a full season, it's going to have a big impact on George Kittle because I think we also saw the emergence of Brandon Ayuk. So there's a lot of mouths to feed in that San Francisco offense. You got McCaffrey, you got Deebo, you got Ayuk, and you got Kittle. I still like Kittle as a talent. I think Kittle's still going to be, obviously, as long as he's healthy, a reliable starting tight end. I'm just not sure he's a top 5. And then Kyle Pitts, of course. We have seen nothing from Kyle Pitts yet to suggest he's even worth drafting in the top 10. So having him at 6, it's just more hype because the physical attributes are just off the charts. Potential's off the charts with Kyle Pitts. He just hasn't put it together yet. And who knows if he ever will. It's a huge risk. And then also David Njoku. I'm not a believer in David Njoku. He's never really been consistent enough. I know that having Deshaun Watson really loves a tight end. That should help him, having Deshaun Watson for a full year. But I still think that there's some other tight ends I would prefer over Njoku. Njoku just isn't the target for me at 10, though I do think he probably deserves to be at the 10 spot, I guess. But he's someone that I'm going to avoid on draft day. I will wait. If I'm that dire that I've already had to settle for David Njoku, I'm just going to wait another round or two and take someone else at tight end because I'm just not a fan of Njoku. All right, so some guys outside the top 10 who I think maybe not necessarily top 10 picks, but are worth owning if you miss out on the big, let's say the big 9. Oops, I forgot to do my spikes. See, I'm sorry. I'm out of practice here. Spikes. Darren Waller at 4. I think Darren Waller is going to be top 2. Honestly, I think that let's just say top 3. Just to be conservative. Top 3, I think the Giants were the ideal landing spot for him because they don't have any reliable wide receivers. Darren Waller is going to be a dude as long as he's healthy. Him and Travis Kelce, I think, are going to be the top per game scorers at tight end. Pat Freiermuth. Pat Freiermuth has actually been the better tight end of the two between Kyle Pitts and Pat Freiermuth. They were drafted in the same rookie class. Pat Freiermuth actually was a top 6 tight end last year, and getting no respect again this year. He's at 8. I would put Freiermuth ahead of Pitts. Pitts is at 6. I'd put Freiermuth. Honestly, I'd put Freiermuth top 5 because I'm moving George Kittle out. I got to put someone else up in there. So I'll put Freiermuth at 5, even though I'm pretty high on Dallas Goedert too. Goedert just is an injury risk. That's the reason he's down where he is at 7, which I think is fair. I'll keep him at 7. But Pat Freiermuth. Kenny Pickett, his quarterback, should take a big step this year, which should help him out because Pat Freiermuth is going to continue to be a safety valve. Hopefully his touchdowns can go up, which would help him climb up the tight end rankings as well. So now for the guys outside the top 10 who I'm interested in. Zach Ertz, I know he's coming off an ACL tear late in the season, so he could miss some time, potentially half the season. But when he does get back out there, I do anticipate him being a top 10 tight end whenever he does start playing. So he's worth holding on your injured reserve spot if you've got multiple. And then Greg Dulcich of the Broncos at 17. We saw him. He was one of the very few rookie tight ends to have a fantasy impact. So I anticipate a big leap in year 2. I know that he's technically the backup in Denver under Sean Payton, but I think that he's going to be the number 1 pass catching option at that position, which, you could be the backup. Like you could be the backup and still be the number 1 tight end pass catching wise because the other guy is more of a blocker. 22, we got Mike Gesicki. I think the Patriots were a great landing spot for him. We know that Bill Belichick loves to use 2 tight end sets. He's had very successful offenses with 2 tight end sets. And I think Gesicki, honestly, is probably more talented than Hunter Henry. We haven't seen Hunter Henry really get utilized in that Patriots offense the way that we would have hoped over the last couple of years. So Mike Gesicki could be the new, I'm not going to say Gronkowski, but he could be the new, hopefully not off the field, on the field, he could be the new Aaron Hernandez in the New England offense. And then it's way down at 28, we got Dawson Knox. I know the Bills drafted Dalton Kincaid in the first round. That's not a good sign for Dawson Knox. It's not a good sign for either one of them. Honestly, they're both probably off my draft board because of the uncertainty there. But the Bills, they needed more offensive weapons. So drafting Kincaid wasn't such a terrible idea. Because they missed on the wide receivers, they probably wanted Kincaid was the best tight end in their mind. Fine, whatever. But they didn't just pay Dawson Knox a lot. Josh Allen does trust him. He has been one of the better tight ends at scoring touchdowns over the last couple of years. I don't think he's going to go away completely. 28, it seems really low for Dawson Knox. I would probably still have him in the top 20. I would actually have Kincaid. I didn't talk about him, but I think he's at 14. I would have Kincaid and Knox a little bit more, even 14, 15, in the 15 range. So yeah, that's the tight ends. Let's move on to the quarterbacks. Not a lot to say about the quarterbacks. I do have a lot of guys to talk about though, but the rankings overall, I'm pretty okay with. Number 1, we got Patrick Mahomes, who I actually just drafted earlier today because I ended up with the number 1 pick, which is my second draft getting the number 1 pick. In my first draft, it worked out pretty well. I took Justin Jefferson. Ended up with Nick Chubb and Josh Jacobs on the turn at 2021. So I still ended up with 2 stud running backs. But in my draft earlier today, I did not. I ended up with Justin Jefferson 1, and then all the top tier running backs were gone. So in 2021, I took Mahomes because I wanted the top quarterback, and I took Chris Olave because I wanted that upside play at wide receiver. So I got 2 stud wide receivers. No running backs. Didn't get any running backs till my 4th and 5th pick. I went with a lot of young guys with a lot of upside, hoping they pan out. But if not, Justin Jefferson and Patrick Mahomes should carry me at least to the playoffs. So Mahomes at 1, Josh Allen at 2, Jalen Hurts at 3. Sorry. I guess I needed to breathe before I swallowed that drink. 4, Lamar Jackson. 5, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is currently hurt, so that's a concern, but not a huge concern. I still think it's a top 5 QB heading into the season. 6, we got Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is coming off a very disappointing year, but I think he has a bounce back year, so I'm fine with the ranking at 6. 7, we got Justin Fields. 8, Deshaun Watson. 9, Trevor Lawrence. 10, Dak Prescott. So, let's talk about my yikes. I have 2. Starting with Lamar Jackson. I think on a per game basis, yes, he's going to be top 5, but we know he's going to miss time. He's too frail. He gets hurt every year. He's too much of a runner. That's not going to change no matter how many weapons they try to add in the offseason. Lamar Jackson's going to be the number 1 running back on that team. He's going to get hurt. He's going to miss games. And each of the last 2 years, he's missed a lot of games down the stretch in the fantasy playoffs. He's not trustworthy. So he's not in my top 5 this year overall. So I'm moving him down. And then Dak Prescott at 10. I don't think he's going to be a top 10 quarterback this year. I think that losing Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator, is going to be a big detriment to him in that passing offense. And he also doesn't have Dalton Schultz anymore, who's moved on. Dalton Schultz was he really trusted him, a huge safety blanket for him. So I think his touchdown passes are going to go down. So I don't have Dak in my top 10. But we'll talk about a lot of other guys who I think could potentially be in the top 10 instead. But my spikes, I have 1 in the top 10, Trevor Lawrence. I think at 9 is too low. I think he finished 7th or 8th last year. So now he finished top 8 last year, and now so we got him outside the top 8 this year. This seems kind of weird to me, especially since he added Calvin Ridley, who we'll talk about Calvin Ridley in my wide receivers video. Evan Ingram's back, Christian Kirk's back, Zay Jones is back. Another year in the Doug Peterson offense. Another year of NFL experience, I think is going to be wonders. For Trevor Lawrence. I don't see him being 9. Trevor Lawrence has been honestly, Trevor Lawrence has been my number 1 QB target this year in drafts, even though I'm a huge Justin Herbert fan. I'm waiting. I'm the guy who likes to wait on quarterbacks in most cases as long as possible. So Trevor Lawrence is like my cutoff there. If I can't get Lawrence, Lawrence is the last guy that I'll get, and he's usually the last guy left on the board in that top 8 to 9. I'm perfectly content waiting for him because I think he's going to finish top 6. I have Trevor Lawrence ahead of Lamar Jackson in my personal rankings this year. So I've been enjoying getting Trevor Lawrence in like the 8th round, whatever it is, and loading up on running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. In the meantime, so I got 6 guys outside the top 10 who I think could all potentially make a play for a top 10 fantasy finish this season. Starting with Tua Tagovailoa at 13. A big if with Tua is staying healthy. The concussions are a serious concern. I think that he, honestly, if he gets another one, it could really impact his life moving forward, and he's going to really have to evaluate whether he wants to or he should continue to play football. So it's a huge risk. That's why he's outside the top 10. I'm fine with him being outside the top 10, but on a per game basis, when he plays with the weapons he has, the coaching, the offense that they run, Tua Tagovailoa could very easily be a top 10 fantasy quarterback on a per game basis. 14, we got rookie Anthony Richardson. He's the kind of guy who, a lot like Cam Newton, a lot like Justin Fields, he's going to get a lot of points with his legs, which is going to keep him on the fringes of top 10, despite the fact that it might not look pretty. The touchdown passes might be low, the team might be bad, the completion percentage is going to be awful, but he might run for 1,000 yards, which will keep him fantasy relevant. 15, we got Aaron Rodgers. I think he's getting massively disrespected. I think he's going to be rejuvenated being in New York. He's got young guys like Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall when he's healthy. He's a good pass catching back. Dalvin Cook's a good pass catching back. He's got a lot of weapons, a lot of options. He's going to have a good defense behind him for the first time in a while. The Packers defense is not good. Not as good as the Jets defense. Aaron Rodgers, despite his age, despite the fact that he doesn't run anymore, could be, a fringe top 10 quarterback as well. Geno Smith sitting at 16. Geno Smith was a top 6 quarterback last year. He's getting massively disrespected. He got a new toy to play with this offseason with Jackson Smith and Jigba. He still has Tyler Lockett. He still has DK Metcalf. He got more toys, and yet his ranking is way down. I get it. Geno Smith, a lot of people think he could be a one-hit wonder, but I've been drafting Geno Smith as my QB2 in a few leagues because I just love the value there. I'm willing to take a chance on him as my backup, and hope that maybe I strike gold. And once Jackson Smith and Jigba is healthy, I really think the Seahawks offense is going to flourish. 17, Russell Wilson. If anybody can fix him, it's going to be Sean Payton. I was higher on Russell Wilson before the Jerry Jeudy injury, and maybe Courtland Sutton can rebound. I don't know. I just think that Russell Wilson is. I don't think that Russell Wilson is the quarterback that we saw last year. I think he's more of the guy that we saw early on in Seattle. Not early in Seattle, but in the last few years in Seattle. So I think he could make a push for top 10 again as well. And then Kenny Pickett at 18. Kenny Pickett is the obvious, the only choice there is for a second-year breakout candidate because Malik Willis is probably going to get cut already. And then Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder's out there, but I'm not a Desmond Ridder believer. He's not in my top 20. Kenny Pickett has good weapons. He has Pat Freiermuth. He has Deontay Johnson. He has George Pickens, George Pickens is a lot of people's breakout candidate at wide receiver. So if George Pickens has a good year, then you would have to assume Kenny Pickett's probably going to have a good year. Kenny Pickett, I don't think he would be. I don't see Kenny Pickett playing himself into the top 10 this year, but he could be, in a 12-team league, he could be a fringe starter, top 12 guy. Some weeks, definitely a great bye-week fill-in or injury replacement down the line. I like Kenny Pickett. Not enough to draft him over a lot of these other guys. Kenny Pickett is the one guy that I am adding to my watch list, for if I need a quarterback later on, or if something happens, because I don't always draft a QB2 anymore. I've been switched up my draft strategy much over the last few years because it's pretty tried and true formula. I usually make the playoffs in all my leagues, but last couple of years I've been a high seed, been getting upset in the playoffs. So switching up my strategy a little bit this year, I have been prioritizing tight end a little bit more than I normally would. I usually am not the guy who goes for the tight end reach, like everybody else. I'm usually the guy who settles for that tight end 9 who I can get, and I still have to reach, but I'm not going 3-4 rounds early. I'm getting him maybe 1 round early. Instead, I'm getting the one guy that everyone else kind of forgot about or doesn't love as much. That's usually me. This year I've been reaching. I'm trying to get Darren Waller shares. I actually drafted Travis Kelce in the first round in one draft. TJ Hawkinson I'm pretty high on. Dallas Goedert, guys like that. Pat Freiermuth. I'm trying to get those guys, so I'll reach for those guys if there's a run on tight ends, and I feel like I'm gonna have to draft one here. I'm willing to do that this year. I wouldn't say I'm still trying to hoard running backs, but I kind of not prioritize them as much as I normally would. Like in the past years, I would have went running back 1, 2, 3 on a lot of drafts, or 1, 2, 4, or something like that. 3 of my first 4 picks, definitely 3 of my first 5 picks will be running backs. But this year, I'm trying to get two running backs my first 5 picks. I'm trying to get the tight end. I'm trying to get a couple of wide receivers, even though wide receiver is wide receivers always deep. I'm trying to get, you know, I'm trying to be more flexible with it. Not a whole lot more flexible. I still prioritize running back. That's my number one. But you know, I'm being more flexible with the tight ends, the wide receiver threes, you know, the guys like that. So I guess that's the whole video. I'm over half an hour. I will get to wide receivers and quarterbacks later in the week, and wish you all well in your drafts. Wish you all well with your fall activities. I personally love fall. It's my favorite season. The bummer about fall is the lack of sunlight. But yeah, I'll take it. You know, the fall usually cooler temperatures, not so much rain, and there's football. There's holidays. Fall is just like a happy season for me. So I will definitely start getting excited for football, you know, when we get closer to kickoff. I'm not expecting much from the Vikings this year. I think that's another reason why I'm not super excited, but I still think we can win our division because I think the Bears are still terrible. The Packers are rebuilding because I don't think Jordan Love is any good, and that defense isn't any good. And the Lions will probably, I think they could, you know, maybe win the division this year. Definitely play for a wild card. They definitely play us tough, but I still think that it's going to be us or Detroit to win the division this year. I'm hoping it's us. But I don't hate the Lions. Lions are the only team in my division I don't hate. I don't have a reason to hate them. They've never done anything. They have had a playoff win. They've had one playoff win in my lifetime. They haven't won the division. They won the division in my lifetime, so it's like whatever, you know. And as a kid, I was a big Barry Sanders fan, so I got his throwback jersey here. So I've never hated the Lions, but the Packers and Bears, yeah, f them, f them. And I'm gonna try to cut down on the swearing this year because I want these videos to be more kid friendly. Because I know that my nephew does watch these. And I appreciate his support. I appreciate the support of my favorite 8-year-old. So, I guess I'll sign off now. Peace, love, and nacho fries. Good luck in your drafts. Hit me up if you want some help or some advice on, you know, this person or this player or that player, or, you know, whatever, because I love talking about this stuff. You can also hit me up for travel advice too. I'm doing this thing on Facebook where, you know, I showcase different cheap flights to and from, you know, Portland to wherever, or Eugene to wherever, sometimes Seattle to wherever, because I want my, you know, friends to learn to enjoy traveling as much as I do, and I want them to see that it's not as expensive or overwhelming as they may initially believe. So hit me up for travel advice, hit me up for fantasy football, fantasy sports advice. I would love to talk about any of those things. Have a nice night.